Call meeting to order of the Silverfalls School District School Board for our town hall / work session tonight. And roll call, a little tougher to do than usual.
They're all here.
We're all here. No,
Except for Owen. Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. And it's a lot easier when they're all in a row. And we want to welcome all of you here tonight. Good to see so many faces here tonight. And I'm going to turn it right over to Kim. She's got the first presentation of the integrated guidance presentation. And then I think she's going to put us to work, if I understand.
That's so true, yes. So I wanted to talk to you tonight about this is just one small part of our funding, but this is an interesting program that has a lot of impact on the district. And so we're going to talk tonight about the ODE funding, the grant funding. So this is our specialized funding in the state that comes to the school district, and we apply for this every year through the student investment account. And so they call it the integrated plan now. So they've combined all these things into one giant plan that's still really hard to manage. Okay, so our objectives tonight is we want to gather some feedback from stakeholders, and I'm so happy to see kids in the room. That makes my heart sing because I think it's really great to have some student voice in here. We're going to learn about the integrated planning system and what is required from ODE to access. It's about $4 to $5 million a year for our district, depending on where the allocation comes in at. And so we won't know that till Kim, where's Kim at?
Yes.
Hiding. We won't know that till later in the spring. So they gave an estimate, so they say it's going to be about 10% higher than last year. So we're hoping that it edges up near $5 million. And then we're going to talk to you about some of your priorities for budget going forward, so that you know, it's really important that we have stakeholder feedback. And so some of you are invited tonight, and some of you are off the open invitation. And so it's really great to have this wonderful large group in the room. So there are 9 federal and state grants that are included in the integrated plan. We're not going to talk about them all. We're going to concentrate right here kind of in the middle. So we're going to talk about high school success, the student investment account, early indicator and intervention systems, and early literacy. And you know, since we're in the high school and we have several high school students in the building tonight, that is an interesting thing to talk about because it really impacts career and technical education and FFA and all those different things that are part of the high school success program. These 4 categories over here are what ODE requires us to build goals around. So well-rounded education, equity advanced, engaged community, and strengthen systems and capacity. So when we write goals later, we have to. So here are some budget basics for you. So these are things that the admin team has been talking about recently. So first of all, grant funding through the Oregon Department of Education, there are over 100 funding sources through ODE. Let that sink in, over 100. So if we applied for every single one of those grants or funding sources, it's a serious amount of reporting. So I hear from the ESD, I think Joe Morlock said that there were about 316 reports that districts do every year. So it's over 300, depending on what grants you apply for. So this is a serious amount of reporting. So people always say, what do you guys do at the district office? We do that, lots of it. And so it's not just the district office, it's other administrators in the building that are, and in the district that are helping with those different programs. So for instance, like Melissa Linder does federal programs and title programs. And so there's a lot of people at play that help get that work done. I talked a little bit about the 4 funding groups. So they make up about $4 to $5 million in special funding for the district. The allocation will come out in the spring. These special funds are often referred to as boutique funds or restricted funds. So these are not part of our general fund. They can't just go for anything. So when you see this large $5 million amount of money that we're talking about tonight, we can't just use it for anything. It has specific purposes and it has, you have all these grant qualifiers that you have to have in place. So we'll work this evening on talking about what we might use that money for as we get later into the spring. Some budget considerations. So the district's budget is about $80 million. And that will depend on where the state school fund comes in. We need to set aside $2.5 to $3 million to fund our PERS liability that we just learned about. It's a huge, huge number. It's not as big as the TAM that we did to get us out of our budget issue, but it is still a very large number. And the number goes up as so the more employees we have, and the higher their pay, the higher this goes. So Kim, can you talk a little bit about how that works for a second?
Absolutely. So the PERS sets an employer rate every biennium. So it changes July 1st of every odd year. Our change in rate July 1st is an increase of $2.5 to $3 million. That is on top of, I would have to double check, but that is an increase of $2.5 to $3 million. That is not what we're paying PERS. So that is literally to maintain the current status quo of everybody's pension. It is an increase of $2.5 to $3 million. When right for next year, we're anticipating for our retirees, PERS is going to run between 35 and 40 cents for every dollar that they earn. So every dollar of wages we add, we need to add 35 to 40 cents just for PERS. On top of that, you have Social Security, Medicare, workers' comp, unemployment, and then of course, health insurance benefits as well. So definitely was a little bit of a shock to the budget when that came out. You probably all seen stories that unfortunately every district has seen that. Fortunately, due to this increase in Silverfalls is due largely in part to what's known as side accounts. We had prepaid a very large amount to PERS. You borrow and you get a PERS pension obligation bond, pays down your PERS liabilities in advance, and every year you get what's called a rate credit. That rate credit is expiring, so that's why you may have seen Mount Angel is seeing the normal couple percent increase. They have not had a side account, have not experienced that savings over the years. We had actuaries run an analysis for us, and to date, the PERS pension obligation bonds have saved taxpayers over $14 million in payments to PERS. So while this is a hit, overall, it has been a significant net savings to the taxpayers.
And for students at the back of the room who do you guys know what PERS is? I'm gonna tell you. Okay, so the PERS is our state retirement system that teachers and classified employees and other state employees belong to. And so when PERS was first started, they promised PERS like tier one, they call them tier one employees. So the first group that was in that PERS system, the state promised them this huge return on their money. They promised them an 8% return. And then guess what happened? We had a recession. And we had a couple other things happen. So what our PERS liability is related to is trying to provide funds to still pay our retirees that are in the PERS system. So if you can get a state job and it has PERS, kudos to you. That's a really good system. I mean, it's a really great benefit for teachers and staff members and other state employees. And so that's across the state. So that's a really short explanation of it. But when they develop that system, they should never promise that huge return on their money, because that put them in the hole. And then we're still digging out of the hole. So what year did PERS going, Kim?
I would not have it off the top of my head.
It's I was licensed in 1990. It's before that.
Yeah.
Pat, do you know?
I'm sorry, I missed it.
What year PERS started?
Oh, I know it was, you couldn't get into tier one after 99, but I think it
Yeah.
started.
80s. 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, 77.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been in place a long time.
Yes.
Okay, so in addition to our PERS liability that we've been talking about and trying to plan for, the district also has upwards of $1 million of deferred maintenance that has been not attended to in the last 3 or 4 years. So we've got 5 buildings in town that all need a roof. at some point. They're like 30 years old. So Robert Frost, the office, the high school, Mark Twain, and there's one more. Where's Jeff when I need him? So there's a bunch of roofing that needs to happen in the district, and those are super expensive. So for instance, the roof on Mark Twain might be upwards of $1 million or more. So those are really expensive repairs. We will also, Andy just checked our turf on the football field. In like 3 to 4 years, our turf will need to be replaced. And that's several $100,000. And you have to keep that updated because it's good for student safety. So those are some of the things that we need to start planning for, because if we can't pass a bond, we have to be able to say that we're trying to make these things happen, because these are good for student safety in the district. And then one other tidbit of information that we don't know about yet, but the federal allocations for title programs might be negatively impacted. So they're talking about 25% reduction to Title I and possibly the elimination of Title II and Title III. And those are not huge funding sources for the district, but they do pay for reading specialists, Title I does. So if we reduce that by 25%, we have to figure out how to backfill that out of general fund or this other program. So we're going to talk about these 4 areas tonight. We're going to talk about student investment account, which was a measure that was passed by the legislature to fund student investment for to help students graduate at a higher rate, have higher achievement, higher 3rd grade reading scores, a bunch of different things that covers high school success, the early indicator and intervention system, and early literacy. And this is a brand new grant that came in last year. It was House Bill 3198 was passed, providing funds, provided $90 million statewide for early literacy. We think that's going to double for next year, but we don't know for sure until the legislature gets done with it. So ODE thought that these plans should be these programs should be all integrated into one plan. So now it's called the integrated plan. And it's because they all have kind of a common goal of student achievement and growth. Okay, so what have we used these funds for in the past? So past uses, we do a lot of things in Sequoia Falls with the SIA account. So that provides alternative education and therapeutic education for our students. Increased mental health support. So counselors, social workers, school psychologists, those things have all been paid out of SIA. Expanded music education, CTE programs. So some of our staffing supplies and other things come out of that is high school success mostly. Early college opportunity at Chemeketa. So that's when kids can go to Chemeketa and take courses. Advanced placement in the high school. Fox Camp, which is the transition program for incoming 9th grade students. 9th grade on track systems and support. So that would include the high school Center for High School Success. So that was a program we belonged to at one point. And that really helps you refine your system for how you keep 9th grade students on track. And then K-5 language arts adoption. So we adopted the Wonders curriculum. And then the Welcome Center at the high school. So that would be the Foxton. Okay, so Kim has brought us some budget sheets from past years, and so she's going to pass those out. So I want you to take a few minutes at your table groups and kind of look over what these programs have paid for in the past. I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 minutes. Question here. So if you see some higher numbers for certain things, so for instance, ELL is higher in 24-25. In order to not lay people off in the district, we had to put them into the SIA account. So when you're looking at 24-25, it's a little different than the other years because there are significant staff members in that funding year. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. So that was a good question. You're on top of it. Okay, keep going. 1 more minute.
We'll probably look at spot. Was that what you're?
Oh, yeah, and I put a message, but it's not somebody. Finger texting. Okay, I just have a question, I can remember, but that was. I know there's a story that I can. Right after here.
That's fine. We don't have to go back and pull exactly. I mean, this is. So this is exactly what's, but grants would never go under a grant, so.
Okay, so we're gonna take a couple minutes.
Yes.
Conversation. We can answer all. Any burning questions? Gosh, you guys are so easy. This is either the most boring thing ever or we're doing okay, okay. Okay, so what do these programs pay for? So here's an example. So high school success, which is one of the 4 we're going to talk about. So this fund has specific uses and can't be used in just any way. So it can go for career and technical education, so equipment, purchases, supplies, student leadership, organization, constructing facilities. So at times, like when I was a superintendent in another district, we use this to construct a culinary facility. So we remodeled a building and put a culinary classroom in it. It can be used for AP and dual credit, personal costs for employees to provide information about college level opportunities. So like a student success coach, student success advocate, counseling and coaching, and it can also be used to combat chronic absenteeism and summer programs. And I have a typo. Gosh, Tony, you didn't catch that one. That typo, man.
Oh, it's very,
I missed it.
very.
Student investment account, this is another one of the 4. And here are some of the ways it can be used. So increasing instructional time, addressing student health and safety. So some of you saw that we had counselors and school psych and a social worker, those all fall under SIA. Reducing class size. So when ODE added the student investment account, some districts have very large class sizes and they used it to add teachers to lower class sizes. Expanded availability and student participation, well-rounded learning. So what can we give students that they don't already have that enhances their learning experience? And so social emotional learning can fall into this category. Nursing was added this year. That wasn't on here previously. So the improvements added for health and safety. And changes to teaching and learning that improve relationship between students and teachers. So are you using, morning meetings and different things to help teachers connect with students? And are you providing professional development for that? That could all be under this category. The early indicator is basically a warning system, and actually Pat Ketchum could talk about this. This is a program where it actually helps define students in your system that need extra support. So it takes a look at students that have attendance issues, behavior, grades, all those different things. So that is a computer system that we use. And so those are some of the other things that can be used for, so staffing or training and data analysis and research. And family engagement, which is what we're doing right now. And then early literacy, look, Taryn, you made the slideshow. We were working on early literacy that day, and so, well, that was a math lesson, I think there, but high dosage tutoring, extended learning, professional development, coaching, adoption and implementation of curriculum for grades K through 3. It was K through 5 in the last year, but now in the next biennium, it will move to just K through 3 for some of these services. And that fund should go up, and that is not, well, it was included in that grant. Okay, so now you know a little bit about these grant systems. Everyone's probably so confused by now, but any questions? What are your questions? Josh, you got questions?
Probably shouldn't ask you.
Do it, dude. I got you. I got
He doesn't.
it. He does that. I don't mind, honestly. It means you're engaged.
I'm just curious about one thing, we could probably be asking, professional development for staff.
Yeah.
Seen that gradually just increasing, was that a lot of ag stuff, or what was? That's how much money you're spending, saw the gradual, apparently kind of curious, or the trend was, what? is
Yeah.
involved in that?
I think you're definitely onto something. I do think that was a trend in the district, that decreased significantly this year, and, that is an area in the grant that we would have a little room in, so that, you know, that will not be something we add back into the grant probably, unless you guys have some burning desire to add it in. Yeah, so that is what that's about. And professional development could be a lot of things, so it could be like, did we bring, you know, the standard response safety protocol in to train staff on safety? I mean, it can be a lot of different things. It can be social emotional learning for staff. That kind of system, like the caring school communities that we've used in the past. And there was a high concentration on unit mapping and projections and all that we did in the past. And I think that the teachers did some really excellent work in that area. And I think that really is going to help us move things along. But there are other areas that we probably should devote some different professional development funds to, in my opinion. And so we'll take a lot of teacher and staff feedback on that, because I think when you start looking at professional development, you can build a system, like you can build a system that supports early literacy that encompasses every staff member in the district practically. So you're training your IAs and everyone on the science of reading and how we, you know, acquire reading skills with the little. So there's a lot of different ways we can approach that. And so, you know, we're trying to start building some of those systems for next year.
And one thing to help put this in context, how this is one piece of a bigger puzzle. Kim mentioned about how next year, we don't know yet what the federal funding might be. And she mentioned, you heard her mention Title II. Title II was an area of funding that traditionally supported professional development. Could do a few positions, but it was really originally designed to support professional development. So if you have a year where you get less of the Title II funding, we're thinking about an overall context about what kind of training and support do we provide our teachers. So that's, you know, that's another thing that goes into this calculation, not only between what we focus professional development on, but where are those total set of resources that we can bring to the table to do that work.
Yeah, and as an example, like I think in 2008, when Obama was president, I think that Title II had about $530 million in it, you know, state or federally. So, I mean, if, you know, it provided, it's not a huge amount of funds for districts, but it did, do you remember what our Title II was last year, Kim?
It's $80,000.
Yeah, so it's a smaller amount. It's not really that much, but it does give you the ability, like if you need to bring an $8,000 trainer in for standard response protocol to get everybody back on the same plane, so you certainly could do that. So if that money is gone, you know, we have to plan for that. Otherwise, we probably won't know that by the time we have to craft our budget, would be my guess. Anything else? Your question was good, Josh. So I'm gonna let Tony talk a little bit about this and how this relates to the entire staffing position. So we had 34.5 positions that were included in these grant programs. So 3.5 FTE were in the early literacy grant, and those were instructional aids to work with kids in reading groups. We had 5.295, which is a really weird number. I don't know how we got there, but for a high school success grant. And so those were some positions, I believe, in the high school that we had to put into the high school success where they don't normally land. And then we had almost 26 positions in the student investment account. Tony, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, so if you want to put this in context, again, looking at this as one piece of a big puzzle. That 34.5 FTE, full-time equivalency of employment, that compares to about a total for this year. We have about 200 teachers and about 170 FTE classified staff. It's a little trickier when you calculate classified staff because we have a lot of staff that maybe only 4 hours, in which case they're only considered 5, half an FTE. So if you think about those numbers, if you have about 370 employees who are either the classified, which is the sports staff, like the IAs, clerical staff, and 200 teachers. So with that 370, you can see that this amount is probably about 8-9% of that. So it's not an insignificant amount.
No, it's not.
It is a pretty critical amount. And then some of those areas where it really does is because the general fund dollars we have primarily goes to general classroom support, which is, you know, all the teachers that you normally see that are in front of the kids every day. These funds really start helping to add and enhance staff. However, in a year like this year, where we did have some challenges coming out of the last year, you can see in some of these items that more of the money may have been allocated to some of those staffing positions because the goal was to try to minimize the reduction. We had about 90 FTE drop overall. So you can see where in those kind of years, it's the same in a recession, a year of a recession, where you start looking at your funds and where you can support, because the district and the board have to make some very tough decisions sometimes about where they want to put those resources to. And most of us would probably agree that we need to keep our classrooms staffed so that way teachers can do good work, right? So in some years you might leverage more of that towards staffing dollars.
And I think the other caveat to that is that we really tried hard, and this wasn't my plan because this was done when I got here, but we tried really hard to not delete or diminish any programs for kids. And so that was a really difficult thing. And that actually required, we actually had to utilize donors to help with some of that. So we had several positions in the district that were funded by a PTC or a private donor or an FFA group. And so we had a lot of help with that. So those positions will need to be folded back in into this equation because, you know, while I love that, I love the donations, and I think that's I just can't imagine the kind of part somebody has to donate like that to the school. We have to be prepared to fold those back into general fund or into this account. So that's just one little detail. Tam, you want to add anything?
I wanted to add because, you know, we start talking today with the top FTE, which is an 8-hour-a-day position, is a 1.0 FTE. That 34.5 FTE represents 42 individuals. So we've got to stop and think about, you know, that is a very, you know, if we have 2 half-time people in there, that's only a 1.0 of that FTE. So we're talking about 42 individuals that we see, and extra boots on the ground, right? So we just want to share that to, you know, basically the value of these funds is exorbitant to this district. So yeah, just keeping that in mind.
Yeah, I think our year this year would have been really miserable without this special account. So these specialized funds really enabled us to get by this year. And so, you know, we're just trying to be really transparent about how we move forward, and we want to make sure that your voice is heard as we do that. And so, you know, having these conversations about what our challenges are and, you know, what our opportunities are is going to be really essential as we move forward. So I'll show you kind of, so these are the different areas. These are some of the staffing assignments that were grant funded. last year. And probably prior years too. So it's a wide variety of things. Okay, so before I get your feedback, I wanted to let you know that we surveyed the administrative team. And we came up with a couple of priorities that we thought were really important as we move forward and we look at different budgeting. You know. Topics. So student safety and supervision. There are some areas in the district where we think our student supervision is a little light, right? So like teachers are having to do extra duties in some areas, like sometimes they're filling in and doing different things. And so I think it's important that we be really mindful about where we're short and try and backfill some of those positions if we can. Discipline support at the high school and the middle school, I would say that is an area that was identified in that meeting, and I think that would be an important thing to add back in, but that's just me, so I'm asking you guys what you think in a second. Interventions, so Title I reading programs and math programs too, and then English learner support. So those programs were cut pretty heavily in some buildings, and so those were identified not only by administrators but by the union comms groups. So when we met with the union and teachers that came in and shared with us, that was a really heavy thing, that English was you know, the reading and English learner support was really important to them. And then core instruction, so English and math teachers at the high school, their caseloads increased significantly. The director of teaching and learning, this is what I'm doing right now, is a director of teaching and learning task. This is not a superintendent task. That's why I'm so bad at it right now. So this is something that your T&L director would normally do. Okay, it's your turn. So gonna have you do an activity at your table. So when you think about our priorities in the district and how we want to move forward and what's important to you, I think it's important to think about things we should start doing that we haven't done that are important before. So for instance, increasing transparency across the district, while that's not budget related, that has been a priority focus for the school board and myself. And so like inviting you guys in to come talk about that, I mean, that's really important to the school board and to me. And so like, that's one of our priorities. And so we ramped that up a little bit. But we want to know, when you're thinking about this, you're thinking about it in the schools. So what would be a great thing for us to start doing? What are we not doing that we could do that would impact student achievement and really help kids? So I'm asking you to think of it from a school level and a community level. So if there's something that we could do in our schools to help the community, then that would be another area. What should we stop doing? So if you see something that you think, man, that's not something we should do, that's a waste of resources, that's a waste of time, that's just not a good use of our energy, that would be for that category. You probably won't have very many in that category, but you might have some things that we need to do differently. So that's what that category is. And then what should we keep doing? What is a strong, powerful thing that the district does that we should prioritize? So you are going to take you're going to take at least maybe 5 or 10 minutes at your table group, and you're going to create sticky notes in each category yourself. So you're going to create your own notes for yourself. So what would you start doing? What would you stop doing? And what would you keep doing? The kids will kick everyone's butt in this competition. They'll have all kinds of great sticky notes. And but I think it would be good if you took a few minutes and really thought about that and talked about it in your table groups. And if you need a hand, holler at Tony and I, and we'll roam around and we'll give you a few minutes, 10 minutes. Okay, so let's talk about what your tables talk about. Does anybody want to share something that they thought was really interesting from their conversation? What are we gonna start, stop, or keep doing? Oh, don't be shy. I am an old middle school teacher. I'll wait you out.
Well, I thought that, and I don't even know, middle school teacher. We struggled with the stop. Because when you say stop and, you know, waste of resources or time. You know, but then I suppose you could come up with tiny things like, you know, don't buy colored paper clips instead of regular items. But we, you know, didn't come up with that, but then the realization when you don't do that. How do you either start something or keep it and expand? When you got finite finance. And so that was wrapping our heads around that as far as starting things. So those stop category was probably our toughest, the other two were easy.
Okay, so what'd you come up with in the other two? What should we start doing?
What do we have started, guys?
We should have left your notes over here. Oh,
Yeah,
let me
yeah,
check
you
all your
took our
notes.
notes. And then say there'd be a test.
Online.
Oh, yeah, hybrid online, aspect as far as a way of increasing, bringing in more people and out of district transfers, encouraging that. To bring those in.
Okay.
And what was the other one, guys?
So on the out of district transfers, just so you guys know, our district has a high number that come into the district and go out. And we used every slot in every building that we had, so Terrence been shaking her head up and down, so we didn't have any capacity to take it anymore. But the online school thing, I've thought a lot about, and I think that's a great idea. To recapture some enrollment, so how do we recapture the attention and serve the people in our community that want to join us, but maybe it's not a perfect fit, right? So how do we craft something that works for everybody and helps other people come into our mix that need an online system or a hybrid, or what does that look like? So it sounds like we should put a team together for that. Anybody else? What about your key?
Most of our keep was keep things but expand on them, like keeping PE at the different levels, but decreasing the amount of students in those PE classes, especially all grades, really lower grade. That was one. Same thing. Well, AP classes, more availability. Although
comprehensive kind of look at the program.
a comprehensive look at AP programs, high school, counseling. That was a definite one. Keeping what we have, but definite increase in counselors, especially at the, you know, below high school. But I'm sure the high school would probably use more too. But,
Well, the high school we didn't do any reductions in the high school counseling department. We had the same size team they had previously, but wherever Brett's at, Brett, where are you at?
What?
Brett took a reduction in his building and we need to add it. I mean, that would be a good thing to add back into.
what do we have there now?
We have 4 counselors.
No, that's
Oh, at the middle school, 0.4.
1.4.
1
Right.
Where's Brett?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he just.
1.4.
1.44. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we added a 0.4, yeah. Okay, so, yeah, maybe around that. That's a huge number of kids, right?
Yes.
I can't imagine handling that counseling level, Jefferson County, that's a lot of kids for that amount of counseling. Okay, what else?
We want to stop wonders. That's
Okay.
the thing that we want to stop. And switch maybe something different.
Okay.
We want to, there's concern, we need to start increasing the. Sounds like early literacy interventions for English students at the high school. Sounds like there's a big need there. And then we want to keep as many IAs as we possibly can at not increase.
Okay, so add to the IA classified group, okay,
Some of you who may not know, when Josh mentioned wonders is a big portion of our elementary reading literacy curriculum. And we found that it's not necessarily aligned, well, actually, government isn't really aligned with the direction that we're looking at literacy now, which is the science and reading. So wonders focuses a little bit more on comprehension, where the science and reading is putting a heavy degree of emphasis on your phonics and meaning awareness and vocabulary, right? So that's what there's a lot of talk in the district about wonders and
yeah.
the literacy.
I talk about
That's definitely connected with the literacy grant.
Yeah, it is. So the literacy grant allows districts to buy curriculum that is aligned to the science of reading. So we have new literacy standards. We have like 130-page document that goes clear through all those things. And I mean, it's a whole meeting all on its own. So, you know, we could do a work session on early literacy because that seems to be a hot topic. When I was working in another district as superintendent, the first thing I did when I got there, because they just adopted one their same year you guys did, 2022, was pull the kindergarten book out. And I was like, going through it, I'm like, oh crap, oh no, where's the phonics, where's the phonemic awareness? Where's this, where's that? None of it was in there. And so we backfilled with equity, but I think we have other options now that might be a better fit for our district. And I think we just need to sit down with K2, K3 teachers and admin and say, how do we, what are we gonna do? Because you're gonna double the allocation for early literacy. And, you know, we've been working in grants. Jamie can talk a little bit. You should talk about that a little bit about working. Sorry,
That's okay.
highlight on you.
No. We've just been working with Sharon Hopper from Oregon Response to Intervention, and been working with all our buildings and kind of guiding us and giving us a lot of great feedback and PD around tier 1 and tier 2 interventions and kind of where we want to go as a district. And our principals have been working together to kind of get back on a common vision. That was one of the things we wanted to start, was our district mission and vision. And we feel like our buildings are working as hard as they can, and our leaders are, and our teachers are doing amazing things. But as a district, what is our vision? What is our mission? What are we making decisions about daily? 6-7 years ago, we spent a lot of time on the district mission and vision. And it really guided us in admin meetings and our direction. And we really went away from that. And I need something to get up every morning and motivate me and inspire me. And really a district mission and vision is something I want to see started. But Oregon Response to Intervention is just a piece of literacy. And it's also what I want to see started with a K5, K8 alignment with our core and alignment with our intervention. So we know every kid in our district is getting an amazing core, and every kid in our district that's not at grade level is getting a great response to intervention and getting a great intervention that they need. So
Yeah, one of the things was a superintendent who's worked a lot on early literacy, and I mean a lot. Like I helped House Bill 3198. I helped. I actually testified to the House Education Committee. I sat on work groups with Representative Croft, and so I did a lot of work on that bill. I will say that you cannot ever intervene your way out of core instruction. And what we have in the district is we have a lack of consistency around which product we use, because the product we have isn't good. It's just not, one is not aligned to the science of reading. When has ODE sent their list out yet for what is approved
For
curriculum?
they're not gonna update that list.
Or not? Okay,
No, not until the next go around.
next go around, okay. So they're operating off the 22 list. And I would, if I was a betting woman, I would say Wonders won't make the next list. Unless they do see this, gosh, hopefully nobody in here works for them, but, and maybe they're doing some significant upgrades, but what we have does not work well for that. And so that is an area we need to change. And we'll work on that. Okay, what else? In the back.
Okay, I'm gonna stand up. Hopefully I'm not too quiet, but something that we talked about was starting the block schedule back up again and stopping the 7-period schedule. This is just because with the 7-period schedule, classes just feel very short and compact, and there's not a lot that can get done. Specifically in CTE programs, like for example in MedTech or something, the people in those classes, they can finish or get started on a project in just 40 minutes of time. But with the block schedule, they could like finish a whole project within that time. Same with science, they can't be doing the labs that they were doing with the block schedule because there's just not enough time in a 40-minute period. But also on top of this, I think that with the block schedule, it really helped with mental health throughout our school district. because it reduced this amount of stress in kids personally for me with like math classes. It gave me an extra day to do my homework, whereas now you're getting the work in class and then you have to go home and then do the homework along with 6 other classes and your extracurriculars on top of that. So with the 7-period schedule, it's just putting a lot of stress on students, not helping with their mental health, and it's not allowing classes to be to their full capability of what they could be doing if they were in a block schedule. So that's just something that we discussed starting back up again, because I know a lot of other students really like the block schedule compared to the 7-period schedule.
Okay, that's great feedback, thank you. The block schedule is more expensive to run, so when you look at it's harder to fit all the kids into classes, it's a more expensive schedule, so. I've built a block and I've built like a 1 and 7 and, I've built a 6, which isn't a good idea. And so I think so we have to figure out a way, if we're gonna prioritize that, moving back to the block, we have to figure a way to move some resources that direction, because, 6 teachers is very expensive. I can teach English if you guys want me to. I keep trying to teach it, nobody wants. Okay. Anything else? What else do we have? Yeah, I know we have more than this. Lori, what do you got?
One thing for Keith.
Yeah.
The transparency between the district and the board and the community and staff. You guys have done a really good job this year as far as doing that, and it's really important to us. For stopping, we're not currently doing it because we're on bare bones, but as far as like our PD, make sure our PD is applicable, grade level appropriate, more of the focused PD, not just a can district. This is what everybody is doing.
Yeah, so close to your classroom and your specific needs.
Absolutely, and then staffing, current staffing, keep that as a bare bones, never again. Baseline, don't ever go below it.
Yeah.
Don't
we're trying to find the coaches. Yeah, we're trying to find a sweet spot now, and so, superintendents are advocating at the state level for increases to SPED funding, so. About 15, Brendan, is it 15% of our kids are on an IEP in the district?
15.2 or 15.3.
Yeah, and so there's a cap on what ODE will spend, when they reimburse you for your SPED students, and so. When you have students that need extra support, you get extra weight for them, but they'll only pay us up to 11%. So there's 4% of our SPED, a little more actually, 4% of our SPED kids that we don't get any extra funding for. We provide a lot of extra support, interventions and different things for students that are on an IEP, even interventions and different things for tag kids. So that support for students that need extra help is sometimes very expensive. And so the other part to that, part 2 to that is that high cost disability with the state. So they only pay us 40 cents on the dollar. So if you have a student that needs 2-on-1 support, that needs 2 employees, well, the state doesn't even pay for one of those. So we have to pay for the second employee in totality. I mean, that's just a really simple way to look at it. And so like we're daily talking to legislators and, you know, I have Rick Lewis coming in to talk to me in early February and trying to really make our point that, those things need to be funded fully. It's time, that has been the model since I think that spend rate was set in 1990. Earlier than that, it's really old, yeah. And so it's time to get up with modern times, like the spend rate nationally is about 15%. So we're way behind. Phil?
I remember one of our starts
Yes.
that we had that I forgot about was an increase in extracurricular activities outside of athletics.
Okay, okay, yeah, clubs and different things. Yeah, that would be a good thing now. What else, Brianna?
One of my keeps was Sequoia Falls.
Okay.
My husband's a youth pastor in the community and we tend to attract students that go to Sequoia Falls in our youth group. And we have seen the impact that that school has had on struggling kids who don't fit the typical high school mold.
Yeah,
I think it's been a great asset.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it is, I think it's a large part of why we're graduating this life, because we take students that, again, need extra support, extra therapy, and we help those kids get across the line. Jen, do you want to add?
I was gonna add stop, because when we start, we gotta take it away. And this is a hard one, because I totally believe in preschool, but it sounds like the structure of the preschool promise grant caps students at 18. I think it's really hard to pay for a teacher and assistant when you're getting reimbursed just for 18 kids, and so we're losing money on that program. So something to consider.
Yeah, one of my stops would be finding a way for our food service program to not go in the red every year. So our food service goes in the red $400,000 to $500,000 a year. And we have to figure out how to navigate that. And that's gonna be a really challenging thing because of our geographical, or the geographical makeup of our district. We have kids like all over in different areas. And so we do a lot of transferring of food, and there's a lot of employees that help serve those kids. So finding a better way to do that, I don't know what the answer is, but that is an area where we need to streamline some things.
So will it continue for that kind of deficit, even, getting the free lunches?
That's a great question. So we went on the CEP program. Kim can probably talk more about that this year, where we're feeding every student in the district, which we're super excited about. But Kim might be able to broadcast or
Yeah,
forecast.
actually, it's funny, just this afternoon ran some numbers, incredible increase in the number of students that are receiving meals at no cost to the families this year. It is lessening the blow a little bit, literally this afternoon, and this is hot off the press, like people in this room may not have, the received the email may not have seen this. I'm detecting instead of maybe a $400 and some $1,000 loss, we might be close to 300,000 this year. But we have seen a 65% increase in the number of breakfast served, and about a 40-some% increase in the number of meals, lunches served. With that sort of volume change, we would hope to have offset that loss a little larger, because our food service staff are absolutely killing it out there. We have not added staff for that increase in meals.
Right.
So that is absolutely,
Yeah.
they are beyond capacity, as is everyone. I don't mean to belittle anything, but to have that significant of an increase, we have some structural things we need to look at. So absolutely excellent. We are absolutely thrilled how many kids are eating, and it makes you feel, hate to say this out loud, but it makes you feel a little bit better about the amount of subsidy, because now every child can benefit from what our taxpayers are helping to support. Versus, previously, some families were paying and some families were, receiving a free meal. So it's absolutely one of those things, absolutely keep the program, but modify our current structure so that we can find a way to let it operate. It's supposed to be essentially a not-for-profit program. It's designed to
Supposed to be a wash, yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, like an example would be like, we have some building things in place that make it really hard, like Paul and Robert Cross building. He has to go the whole length of the building to take food down to where the kids eat, and then he has to bring this cart back. And so like, we have some inefficiencies in our system because we need another gym at Robert Cross. So when we start talking about the bond, which we will talk about, later, not right now, but those are some important things, because some of these systems and programs can be really enhanced by upgrading some of our facilities and being smart about and strategic about what we do with a bond. What else?
I think of things from a tech department perspective, and I think we need to start holding kids accountable for breaking devices equitably across the district. Some schools do, some schools don't, but we spend thousands upon thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours on broken devices every year.
Okay, thanks, Brian. That's good feedback.
At this point, we will start, like increasing student discipline across the board. I think some areas of administration really do that, and other areas don't. it's an unbalanced system. So especially at the high school level, I mean, if you sit in a class and there's no discipline, you're not gonna learn anything.
Right.
And it shows at the end of the year, so if you're in higher level classes, you tend to see more discipline to students on how you do there. I think if we increase discipline across the board, if we have standards set, students are gonna perform higher than they ever have.
Okay, so a more consistent system that operate, yeah, and I would, you're exactly right, you're dead on. And like having a system for that, so we are working on that, we're actually working as an admin team on the whole behavioral framework and matrix for the whole district right now. And so putting some of those systems back in place that were in previously that haven't been adhered to sometimes. I mean, that's a consistency thing, and that takes a while to build that kind of culture where you're actually, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Anything else? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Jennifer?
I think adding math lab back to the high school,
Math lab.
yeah, so that extra class for kids who need that extra support.
Yeah. I would think that adding half a math teacher back to the high school is gonna be pretty important. Yeah, that, the math supported, I mean, like, we need another, at least another half an FTE in the high school for math. According to the high school staff.
I would say not just at school, we used to have a math intervention coach at Robert Frost, and she was amazing. We love her,
Okay.
we miss her. But it really helped with kids who were struggling with math as well, and she was an extra support, working with those kids and giving strategies or giving ideas to teachers. So I would just say really at every school,
Okay.
have Title I reading, it'd be nice to have math as well.
Yeah, I mean, we can't have math support for title, I mean, if we have the funds for it, yeah, so, okay, so math intervention special. Okay. Good point. And maybe some PD to go along with it, for teachers and I ready.
What, yeah,
Some, at least at the K-5, but some proactive behavior support, SEL instruction. Not necessarily, well, I mean, for everybody, but also specifically for those like those tier 2 and tier 3 kids that need intervention, teaching themselves how to regulate before they are dysregulated. So trying to teach them some skills.
Okay, I agree with you 100% on that, and that just putting those systems in place, that's, I mean, that's a really important part of running a building, it really helps when you have those things. So. What else? Lori?
I just have an addition to the behavior thing.
Yeah.
I think having somebody that, there's an emphasis on attendance and targets, things like that at the high school level, but it's, that's their job, not so many people trying to, okay, can we fill this hole, but yeah, focus on that, because that's huge. Because yeah, a system for that.
Yeah, I think we need another person, not, I think we need a person, yeah, the person and the system, so. I'm part of a cohort, Learn 2025, and it's like a national cohort, but it also is an Oregon group. And so we did a lot of interventions and different things with attendance last year, and Shelley Berman runs that group. And we put a new attendance policy in the district I was in last year, and we had the highest rate of return in the whole group, so we increased attendance by 10%. It didn't tackle the target thing, but it was just overall attendance, so. I think putting some of those systems in place in the district will help us, and we're doing kind of a pilot at the high school with a modified version of it. What else?
I'll add, yeah, one of the things you just mentioned, you know, your attendance, you saw the results, and so one of the things having, you know. Been around a few years is to maybe stop or start, however you want to look at it. You know, stop the things that we're doing just because we've always done them that way. Are we actually seeing results out of this role? You know, and I'm not picking any one piece, but to really look at if we're investing in this, what is the outcome that we're seeing? And if it isn't working, then we pivot and we look at it anew. But sometimes I think we just kind of, we've always had this position. Well, could we move the dial a little more for kiddos looking at it, some other options?
Yeah, okay, that's a great point.
I think keeping time where teachers can meet their early releases. It might look a little different and stuff, but giving the teachers time that we can actually meet and go over the data and look at how our students are doing and what we need to change, that's really important.
Yeah, that's really important.
And time for specialists, for teachers to be able to work together.
Yeah, collaborate.
Yeah, that we're not, specialists aren't, here you are. We need time in our buildings.
Yeah, you need
work
to be
with
a part of the
teachers. Yeah.
system. Yeah, correct. Yeah, the back.
One thing, like when I was in high school, I did like 1-2 sports. I know there's a lot of like sport athletes. And they were still making us do like 2 credits of PE. It just seemed a little like we're putting these really athletic kids in these PE classes where they could be doing CTE classes or getting an early release and going and doing a job and making money or learning something that would benefit them. Whereas they're stuck playing a sport that they don't even want to play potentially and hanging out with a bunch of other kids and just making the class sizes bigger. And I mean, potentially you could decrease the amount of PE classes because a lot of times we play sports, you can maybe go down to 1 or 2 classes.
That's
Rather
smart.
than how many there are a day.
Yeah, that's smart. Then have, gonna talk about that a little bit, how we do that. I saw that. Okay. There are ways to do that. You're right. And that's not efficient. And I've actually given kids certified proficiency when they have trouble.
Yes, we did, our table did say start for alternative learning options at all levels.
Yeah.
For things like that, and alternative support at the middle school specifically. Because I think.
Big behind it.
Right.
You bailed on our table.
I know.
But yeah, alternative learning options at all levels will help everyone. I mean, online would be an example of that.
Yeah.
Credit like proficiency for something that's already available. We just it helps everyone.
Yeah. What else? Because that's so many stickies, what else do you have back there? Young adults, not good. No, yeah.
Another thing,
Yeah.
I think it'd be good if like the administration and just like this kind of school would like promote kids to like start really thinking about their future career. Because I know it's kind of been like, oh, hey, you don't really know what you're gonna do right now, but it's like, you should really be thinking about it. You're gonna go to college, spend thousands and thousands of dollars, if you don't have it, you're gonna be getting loans, you're gonna be in debt for how many years, and you're gonna totally mess up your life. Be super stressful, trying to think of things that's like, if we just, if you know what you wanna do, hey, you go to trade school or.
Yeah.
If you go, you get scholarships, we should be promoting more scholarships. And with that, like, hey, take harder classes, go do all these other activities, because then you can apply for these scholarships. Get more money, so then you don't have to spend all this in college and be more successful, but I've seen so many students, a lot of my friends, they didn't do these hard classes or these other activities. And then they're like in the hole, and they're trying to go to college and you can't pay for anything. It's like, well, I mean, maybe you should have been thinking about it a little bit sooner and doing more CTE classes or more different, classes, so you can learn what you want to do and learn what you don't want to do.
Yeah, figure out what you're good at.
Yeah, exactly, don't push it off to the very end and.
It's fine.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And I think that, I think a lot of times, there are different pathways for different kids based on what they want to do, so we want to make sure that we have the current. Pathways for everybody to succeed in, so you want to go to trade school, you want to go to the military, you want to go to college, you want to. Go into the workforce, and you might what's your jam and figure out how to get you the best pathway there. And I know that the high school counselors do a really good job of that, but I think part of what you're talking about is maybe, some of the rigor that we have in the high school system kind of diminished after COVID because kids were out of the building for a while. And I think that we just have to ramp that back up, right? We have to get kids to do more and to perform at a higher level. Anything else? Yeah.
As a student in a leadership organization, it would be super cool if we had a say in like what we're doing right now. I know board meetings are open to everyone, but there's a lot of reasons why some people may not come, especially students. Many students aren't even aware that they're allowed to show up. They're not aware that they're allowed to have a voice in these things. So it sounds like coming from someone that is in a leadership opportunity, it would be great to see like student polls, even if you offer them to start, stop, see what they have to say, because at the end of the day, we are living through what you guys decide to put on our tables.
Yeah.
And I know as kids, we don't understand some of the bigger aspects, but it would be nice to have an idea of what is going on and have a say in what our future.
Yeah, so we have an exit survey at the end of the presentation tonight. And so once we do that tonight, you guys have an opportunity to take that, and then it'll go onto the district website, so anyone can take it. And so if kids want to take that, it has one open-ended question where you could add anything that, you know, what it says, what else do you want to tell us? I think that's what it said, right? Patrick made it today, Mr. Morgan. And so I think that, you know, providing that feedback, that's a great place to start. We could craft one that's more student. The one we have tonight is not as student driven as maybe it should be. Maybe we should do a student driven one.
Well, I think also one of the requirements that we have with integrated guidance is we have to do focal group work
We do.
at our different levels. So I think you're right on. This is the first part to do like the open board work session, but then it is incumbent back on us as administrators in our buildings to then engage with those different focal groups, such as student organizations and others. We just have to start that whole process and we gather as much information as possible. So you're 100% right. We want to and will be, as we're doing that with focal groups, moving through different stakeholders to get feedback.
And this survey will also be pushed out to all staff, so principals will push this survey out later to staff, we get staff feedback too, because we have lots of teachers here tonight, and lots of, you know, classified people, but not everybody's here, and so I think it's important to, like, you know, I took some feedback earlier in the year on a curriculum program we were using, and I got some really clear feedback that was crystal clear. And so sometimes you can get some really good direction on things when you ask the right question. Yeah. It's a great point. And we also have talked about adding a student representative to the school board. So that was the topic we just discussed earlier in the year, and we're still throwing it around, but it requires us to pass a policy and it requires some legwork. Anything else? Did we miss anything?
I think feedback is good.
Feedback
That's
is
just saying
amazing.
expanding and asking for, even if it can't be here, still giving everybody a voice to do it, not in a youth truth survey, because that doesn't allow us to really express our thoughts or concerns or whatever, but in a more structured way.
Yeah, and kind of,
Open-ended too.
yeah, kind of an anonymous way, yeah.
Exactly. Youth truth doesn't allow us to, I know it's used in a lot of ways, but it's not taken as seriously as I think the intention for it is, both staff and student.
Okay, good feedback, thank you, Laura. Yeah.
Kind of going off of the youth truth survey, I'm just gonna be honest. Since we've done it so many years in a row now, like we're required to do it. It just like, it's very repetitive. So as students, we see that survey and then we get it multiple years in a row, but we're not gonna want to take that multiple years in a row if it's the same exact thing every year. And so in all reality, a lot of students aren't taking it seriously and they are probably just clicking through whatever they like, just clicking random answers because it's a survey and it takes their time. So they don't want to do it and they've seen it multiple years in a row. So I think something like they were saying and have a different way of getting students feedback, then it would be very beneficial because I know a lot of students are not taking this survey seriously.
Okay, you have people in here that helps run that survey, so they can, you actually provided feedback to them too, so thank you for that, and thank you for sharing your honest truth about something that you have done, because that really helps us, like, you didn't tell us, you know, we would think that. So you don't have to take the OSAS test. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel very young man was saying, I think developing financial literacy starting at, very at elementary school.
most basic levels.
Yeah.
To develop that. Depth for success as an adult. You know,
Yeah.
there's totally anything to include that.
But
Yeah, they did change the graduation
and
requirement.
like at elementary, I know they do like a mock, you're gonna do a baby.
Yeah,
And you kind of don't do a mock bank account
yeah,
where you have fake money that you spend all your money or, you know, I don't know, just playing the stock market or for kids to
yeah.
start thinking.
Run your own household.
Whatever it is, you kind of think.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So we do have new graduation requirements for 2027. But you're right, probably lower down into the other grades. Yeah,
Yeah, along the same note, young man, I couldn't even see from here, brought up when he was talking about career.
Yeah.
Thinking about that. I know, I think back way back, even my own education. There used to be a lot more, I think, than you do now, integrating into subjects, things like career. Example, having an English teacher that has you, research, maybe you pick 5 things you think you might want to do when you grow up as an 8th grader writing in English class, and you know, do some research on those things. And things like that at a younger level, and then working up and just not pushing anybody to make any decisions, just have them looking
yeah,
at things so that they know what's out there.
Yeah,
And the other young lady mentioning back there, them not even knowing that students it falls in that same kind of category, just different ways, and the younger to be giving that kind of information out and having them look for it, then it becomes more common.
yeah, and I think middle school kids have to provide or have to build a personal education plan, so they're supposed to start talking about it in middle school. It's a state requirement in Oregon. And so we can check on that and see how our kiddos are doing on that.
With the caveat that it's not always college.
No, it's not
I'm
always
an
college.
educator, but
Yeah,
I mean, it's not.
No,
And we were just talking too, the unfortunate thing, when you have kids like our ELs or our kids that are on an IEP or whatnot, they have special, you know, their class periods for those support classes, those type of electives, they don't even get to explore
yeah,
to do CT or anything like that, because all of their lecture time is spent in support class.
so maybe finding some after school opportunities for them to look at some of those different things.
Well, and I think internally looking at how can we provide support and still,
In different ways. Yeah,
but it's not always class period or whatever,
Yeah.
so then looking at our internal programs as well.
Yeah, person. So, at the high school, before we, jumped into edX with both feet hard, we were working on a lot of cross-curricular work that it was really making progress for us. And it allowed, like I worked with a science teacher back and forth with protective services, we were doing forensic things where they were doing crime scenes, and we were talking about how it worked back and forth, our students that were in the same groups. And it really got some kids thinking about school in a different way than just going from class to class to class. And so we've talked with a lot of our students about how can they, if they're having a hard time in a class, how can they relate it back to something that they like in order to help them. And I just know that you look at TV and some of those other things, we had a really good movement going towards cross-curricular educational opportunities, from finding math credits in specialty classes that might be like computer programming, or being able to find art credit in well-being, or being able to find different things in different places that we don't always think about. And that was really stopped. And that's being able to move forward with that.
okay.
Well, that's a good, I think you get good at what you like. If you're proficient enough to get there, you find out what you like and you work at it and you get good at it. You know, versus this is what comes natural to mathematics, I'm gonna be engineer.
Yeah,
I think kids are like, it's kind of linear thinking. I think that can be tough thinking that way, too black and white with kids.
yeah, so, okay, great feedback. Because one of the things that's always interesting is when, as a, former curriculum director, like I did a lot of professional development planning. And it always seems to focus on K-5, where you're talking about reading and math and all those things, and then sometimes the high school is kind of an afterthought, because they're all in their own content areas, and it's harder to plan. PD at the secondary level, I think, so I think having a real, talk about what that looks like if you're in principal, and like trying to find some ways to bring some of those systems back into play.
It was also mentioned too, not only the cross curricular or within grade level PD, but also cross grade level, what we call vertical articulation. That's an important piece too. It even starts from the little preschoolers, and are we knowing what our kids are coming up into the school system ready to do, and then are we having those transition points? It is an interesting challenge in a district like Silverfalls, where we have several of our buildings, our outside out of town buildings, where you're going all the way to 8th grade. And then you have Mark Twain and Robert Frost, where there's 5th grade. So it even brings to light a greater importance. And how are we having those conversations as students go from, say, the traditional elementary levels to 6th, 7th, and 8th? We have 6th, 7th, 8th is one classroom.
Yeah, we were in one today. It was
And how do you have those teachers have those opportunities to talk to the teachers at the middle school who are doing that course? And then relate it back to what those teachers at 5th grade or 4th grade level are doing. So those are all things that we start thinking again about the school professional development piece. What types of, or what methods of professional development are going to best align with the goals we have or the challenges we have? Because when you look at our data, we have areas where we can grow and improve, and we need a target for student success. So kind of backwards map, thinking about what's the type of professional development structure that's best aligned to help our educators get to that point, right, and doing that good work. So those are some good points.
Yeah. Any other comments?
I just wanted to add, this cross curriculum, and doing things like this, those are the ideas that we really are looking for the community to kind of help support, because the finite resources are there, right? We'd love for all these ideas to come into play, right? But how can we look at what we have and use it differently, right? Just reprogram it in a way, how we're going about that, because yeah, it's so exciting to hear all of our ideas, and we absolutely want to do them all, but so I want to thank, the ideas that are coming out, that, we can just look at what we have in a new lens and find new ways to do that, so, yeah, it's excellent.
As we go on further into the spring too, once the legislature looks at the budget and determines, if they're gonna do any adjustments instead, and like cost disability, then we'll know more about where our funding is gonna come in at. So can we add some things to the student investment account or HSS or early literacy? I think probably we could get the curriculum support for something other than Wonders out of the early literacy grant. I think there'll be enough funding in there for that. And what do we do with if we have increases, like how do we support students and move forward in a way that really boosts student achievement and how they feel about school, right? So you want them to feel good about school. Yeah. Any other comments? You guys are really good tonight. Good group.
I have a question.
Yes. I know.
But I'm very curious, 20 years ago, we had early late start.
Yeah.
Only once a month on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Now, every day we have early release every Wednesday.
Right.
I'm just trying to figure out if that's the same amount of time or if it's increased.
I think the requirements are probably similar, the amount of minutes the kids have to be in a building, so when you're building a calendar. You have whatever the contract says for your staff, however many days they're gonna teach or how many minutes, whatever it is. And then you also have the requirements for the kids, so they have to have a certain amount of seat time. So once you meet both of those things, there's sometimes areas where you can do early release or, you build that into your calendar.
Are those considered professional development time periods, or they're not days there? Because it's only an hour. At the end, you get off an hour. Right?
Yeah, right. And we talked about, adjusting the calendar a little bit so that maybe, like Tony's working on that right now, so maybe we don't have as many early release Wednesdays, and maybe we have some half days on Fridays where they can do some longer professional development, so. Having just that short amount of time on Wednesday, in my opinion, is problematic for us. Because of our geographical configuration, so like, you know, if you're out at Victor Point or you're out at Scotts Mills, it's hard to get down here. You know, by the time you get down here, you've lost 20 minutes, and, so it just decreases the amount of time we have together. So those large collaborations, like if you have all 8th grade teachers in a room together, that limits the time. So it would be better if we had some Fridays in the mix where we had, you know, time to do early literacy, because there's no way I can do early literacy PD for teachers in an hour and a half. It's 5 or 6 hours.
So if that was just changed over this last contract period,
Yeah,
by request of the district, specifically for NX training, that consistent. That's where that came about, because it used to be Mondays, you know, alternating Mondays, that kind of thing. Ish.
ish, yeah.
But
Twice a month, once a month.
So you've only had it like that 1 year? Or
the multiple times,
that Wednesday, every
The
Wednesday?
Wednesday.
that's the Wednesdays started, during this.
Yeah.
So 22, 25,
Yeah.
so it's just this contract.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you had an MOU or.
No, it was at request, and it was at, right at. Beginning of our.
I would request that we do something different. Accommodate PD a little better. Tony's working on that, sorry, I'm having calendars on that. But we have some old calendars we can pull out and see what they look like. Any other feedback? Anything not related to this you wanna tell me?
Yeah, kind of final thought, and something that Jamie touched on, or was talking about is, because I've kind of heard all the different ideas. It just shows how much there's to do out there, and how many different routes we could go. So like KJ mentioned, it's the shine, so there's a lot of things that we need to do, and so I think it goes back to the importance of probably for us as a community start to go back to really putting some focus on and creating strategic vision. Because I think what that'll do is, Kim talked about, we've got finite resources, we have a lot of good ideas, but really coming together with that focus on like, how are we going to harness the resources we have, how do we harness the talent we have in the community, and get that all going in one direction, so that we don't get off on ideas, it's maybe great, it's not that in the direction that kind of on board. So that's kind of the big takeaway, because I've listened to everyone tonight, really talking, and a ton of great ideas, but how do we focus that?
Yeah.
What's our big picture?
Yeah, I personally need a strategic plan because I can get spread out too thin and get off task. Just being really honest, I have a little, you know. Tendency to follow shiny objects. So I mean, I think it's good that we, you know, refine our focus, and because our strategic plan is up in 2025, so it's exciting. So.
Along with that, I think also the more minds get put to this, more likely it's to happen. The more of, you know, problem A, problem B, problem C. Well, there's, can we get creative in a method to maybe at least partially or partway get a solution in all 3 areas with one fix? I'm not explaining that very well, but look at different things that can be incorporated and oh, if we do this, well, we might not. I'll give you an example. Mentioned earlier about the counselor piece. Well, I could see that piece going into helping in other areas that we also talked about as far as attendance of discipline, looking to one's future,
Right.
all kinds of areas, but that's just real simplistic, but just where we can, especially when money is so important to us, how can we with one rock and we get 2 or 3 things instead of just one.
Well, I think like, you know, the admin team has talked about some creative things. So here's an example, like Jen Hannon and I talked about this, and Tony and Kim, and So Sequoia, Sequoia has a yearly lease amount. Can we move the Sequoia kids into the district office? Yes, we're gonna have to put some sprinklers in there, so Jeff tells me, but. If we move Sequoia into the district office, we save that, I don't know, it's like, it's a ton of money. How much is it a month, Jim?
For the full year, it's 90.
For rent, it's 115 for the facility.
Yeah, so that's almost a teacher's salary, it's not quite there, but I mean, it's starting, so. Could we put Sequoia in the district office and relocate us to the high school, because we have some extra classrooms here, like. Do we set up a superintendent's office in one wing of the high school? And I'm here to help support the high school. So, I mean, like, when you're talking about large discipline issues and, where the bulk of my work usually happens is in the middle and high school. So like, being over here is not a bad thing for us. And, most of our employees are here, we have over 1,200 kids here. And so like, it makes sense for us to be in this building, and we have extra space here. So, I mean, that's a huge cost savings. I mean, it's a big ask to move Sequoia out of that building, but I think that it solves, it frees up some resources for us to do different things. And so we're trying to think outside the box and make some of those things happen, because we understand the value of having an additional teacher, which is what that would pay for, basically, close-ish. Not quite. Got my big bomb about moving into your building. Come there.
It's almost covered the watch.
Stay, that's what I said. Okay. Yeah, I might. Talk too loud, I might. Okay, any other things before we move on? That was a really rich discussion. Thank you, robust. Okay, so we already did the sharing part. We already did that. We did that whole slide. So this is your exit survey. So tonight, and when you do this, Patrick said, turn your phone horizontal. Because the questions, it cuts them off if you don't. If you want to take that, it would be really good. And I have 20 paper surveys. If anyone wants to take it on paper, I brought paper in case you didn't bring it. So does anybody need a paper survey? Get out of your room. Okay. Now okay. I think it's all you, though.
With that up to that point. Okay, I would just like to say thank you to everybody that's here. And it was great to hear all the different, I love hearing me. I love hearing from our young people. They're the ones directly affected. I love hearing from them. And I hope we have more voices more often and share, because it gives us all a direction of what is needed for our district and wanted for our district. And thank you very much. Adjourned.